All right, today we're jumping into A Letter to God. It's a really simple story, but it packs a powerful punch about faith, desperation, and you'll see a whole lot of irony. So whether you're studying this for class or you're just curious, don't worry, we're going to get right to the heart of it. Let's do this.
So first, let me ask you something. Just imagine for a second that everything you've worked for, your entire livelihood is just gone, wiped out in an instant. What do you do? Where do you even begin to turn for help? That exact question is really the core of this whole story.
Okay, so let's meet the man at the center of all this, a farmer named Lencho. He's a pretty simple guy, and he lives in the only house in the entire valley, right on the top of a low hill. And from there, he's got this perfect view of the river and, more importantly, his prized possession, his field of corn.
And that field, well, it's a picture of pure potential. It's covered in these white flowers, which is a surefire sign that a fantastic harvest is right around the corner. I mean, it's basically a promise of prosperity. But there was just one little thing missing. And that missing piece was so simple. He didn't need a miracle, he didn't need a fortune. All he needed was a good, solid rain, a downpour to make his crop perfect. So he just watches the sky, totally full of hope, just waiting for nature to deliver that one last thing.
And at first, you know what? It seems like his wish is coming true. Just like Lencho predicted, these big drops of rain start to fall. You can just feel his excitement, his relief, right? But that joy, oh boy, it's about to turn into an absolute nightmare.
He was so happy, he literally called the big raindrops 10-cent pieces, and the smaller ones 5s. To him, this was money falling from the sky. But then, it all changes in a heartbeat. A strong wind kicks up, and those precious coins start turning into hailstones. His kids, not really getting what's happening, run outside to collect these frozen pearls.
And what followed was just total, utter devastation. For a whole hour, the hail just pounded everything: his house, the garden, the hillside, and his cornfield. By the time it was over, the whole valley looked like it was covered in salt. Not a single leaf was left. You can just hear the heartbreak in his voice here. As he's standing in his ruined field, he says that even a plague of locusts, a swarm of destructive insects, would have been kinder. They would have at least left something. But the hail left nothing. Absolutely nothing.
Now, facing this complete disaster, knowing his family is looking at a year with no food, you'd think he'd just collapse in despair. But Lencho, even with all this sadness, clings to one single hope, an idea that honestly sounds pretty wild.
It all comes down to this one simple, powerful belief he was taught, that God sees everything, and because of that, no one dies of hunger. For Lencho, this isn't just a nice thought. It's his only way forward. It's his last resort. And his hope gets very, very specific. He decides he's going to write a letter. And who does he address it to? Simply to God. In it, he explains everything that happened and makes a bold, direct request. He needs 100 pesos to plant his field again and to keep his family alive until the new harvest. So he actually mails the letter. And at the post office, one of the postmen finds it, and I mean, what would you do? He starts laughing out loud. A letter to God? He just has to show his boss, the postmaster, who's described as this really friendly, good-natured kind of guy. The postmaster laughs at first too. Of course he does. But then he gets serious. He's just completely blown away by this. He's not making fun of Lencho anymore. He's in awe of this man's pure, absolute faith. He wishes he had that kind of belief himself. And right then, he decides he has to do something to keep that faith alive.
But he knows that just feeling inspired isn't enough, so he comes up with a plan. He puts in some money from his own salary, and then he goes around asking his employees and some friends to chip in for what he calls an act of charity. It's kind of a beautiful moment, really, this act of generosity, all to protect a stranger's faith.
Now, collecting the full 100 pesos, that turned out to be impossible. It was just too much. But together, they managed to scrape together 70 pesos, which is still pretty good, a little more than half of what he asked for. The postmaster puts the money in an envelope, writes "to Lencho" on it, and for the signature, just one word: God.
So, the next Sunday, Lencho comes back to the post office. And here's the thing. He's not even a tiny bit surprised that there's a letter for him. His faith is so absolute, he just expected God to write back. The postmaster watches from his office, probably feeling pretty good about the whole thing.
But Lencho's reaction, it is not at all what you'd expect. He opens the envelope, sees the money, and shows no surprise whatsoever. But then he counts it,
and his face just changes. He becomes furious. See, in his mind, God is perfect. God wouldn't make a mistake like sending the wrong amount, and he certainly wouldn't deny his request. So there could only be one explanation.
Right then and there, Lencho asks for paper and writes another letter. After he leaves, the postmaster hurries to read it. And what does it say? Lencho thanks God for the money, but says he only got 70 of the 100 pesos, and then he asks God to send the rest, but pleads with him not to send it through the mail. Why? Because, he says, the post office employees are a bunch of crooks and must have stolen the other 30 pesos.
And that's where the story leaves us, on this incredible ironic twist. It really forces you to think about what faith even means. On one hand, you've got Lencho's blind faith in God, a faith so strong that it completely blinds him to the actual human kindness right in front of him. And on the other, you have the postmaster, who's moved by that faith to act out of his own belief in humanity. So the real question is, whose faith was stronger? Or maybe, which kind of faith is more valuable? It's a lot to think about.